My name is Camille Rivers, and I'm 30 years old. The night my boyfriend said, "If you don't like my friends, that's your problem," something very quiet inside me stood up, took her coat off the hook, and walked away from the part of me that kept auditioning for basic respect. It was a Friday, one of those evenings the city does in soft gold and glass. Logan had invited me to what he called Guy's Night, but upgraded, his monthly meetup with his college friend group at a wine bar that looked like a Pinterest board. Exposed brick, low lighting, shelves of bottles with labels I couldn't pronounce. "They've been asking to meet you properly," he'd said, brushing a kiss against my forehead. 10 months in, it's time you pass the council vibe check." "The council?" I'd laughed, thinking he was joking. "They've called themselves that since college," he said. "Don't worry, they'll love you." I should have known something was off when we walked in, and I realized I was the only partner there. 5 men at a long table, half a bottle ahead of us, all eyes swiveling toward me like a jury watching the defendant approach. Logan's hand rested at the small of my back, guiding me forward. I felt like a presentation. "Guys, this is Camille," he announced. "Cam, this is the council." The ringleader was Scott, 29, marketing director at some flashy startup. The kind of man who wears a blazer with sneakers and begins every sentence with "actually." Next to him was Ian, 28, a fashion content creator who looked at my black jeans and Target boots like they were a personal attack on his aesthetic. Zach, 29, a yoga and fitness instructor who kept saying words like energy and alignment in a way that made me want to slouch out of spite. Nate, the lawyer, watched me like I was on cross-examination. And at the far end was Alex, the only one who gave me a normal, nervous little wave. He looked like the kind of man who says sorry when someone else bumps into him. They'd already had a bottle of wine before we arrived. Their laughter had that too loud, unmoored quality of people who've been talking about you before you got there. "So," Scott said, leaning back like he owned the room, "you're the famous Camille. We've heard things." "Good things, I hope," I said lightly, sliding into the chair next to Logan. Scott smiled, all teeth. "Well, Logan says you work in IT. Software development," I corrected. "Back end mostly." "Right," he said. "Very practical. Not super creative, though, is it?" Logan chuckled, nudging my knee under the table. "Cam's creative in other ways," he said. They exchanged a look, the kind that makes your skin remember every private moment someone else has heard about. Ian ran his gaze down my outfit. "So, we've got practical and Target chic," he said. "Bold choice." I forced a smile. "Comfortable chic." "Comfort's important," Zach chimed in, taking a sip of his wine. "Means your nervous system is probably blocked. Do you do yoga at all?" "Not really," I said. "I go to the gym. I run. Normal stuff." "Gym," he repeated, like it was a slur. "Weights and treadmills, huh? That's very masculine energy. No wonder your aura's all tight." I laughed once because I didn't know what else to do. "My aura's fine. My hamstrings might disagree." They laughed. At me, not with me. I could feel it. Nat leaned forward, steepling his fingers the way TV lawyers do. "So, Camille, 10 months with our boy Logan," he said. "That's around the time his relationships usually plateau." "Nat," Logan warned, but he was still smiling, like this was all a bit. I swallowed. "Plateau how?" "Nothing serious," Scott said. "It's just a pattern. Remember Michelle?" They all made a collective noise like a shared inside joke. A name I knew too well. Logan's ex-girlfriend, the one who took him to Paris just because. "Michelle flew him to Paris for a weekend," Zach said, looking at me. "Insane, right? Just because she felt like it. That's passion." "At least she had ambition," Ian added. "Started her own company by 28. Some women just go above and beyond." "Michelle was intense, though," Scott mused. "Jealous. But passion's better than vanilla." They all looked at me. Logan said nothing. He didn't put a hand on my arm or laugh it off or say, "Hey, enough." He just took a drink, cheeks a little pink. I felt the first crack, thin and clean, right down the middle of the evening. I tried to steer it somewhere safer. "So, how do you guys all know each other?" I asked. "College," Alex said. "We survived freshman year in the same dorm. Trauma bonding." "Yeah, we've seen every version of Logan," Nate added. "The party boy, the romantic, the simp." "Hey," Logan protested, grinning. "I was never a simp." Ian smirked. "Please. Remember the time you drove 3 hours in the middle of the night because Michelle said she missed you?" "Now that was romance," Zach said, looking right at me. "Logan needs someone who inspires that kind of crazy." "Where do you see yourself in 5 years, Camille?" Nat asked abruptly. Career-wise, life-wise, we have to vet the long-term prospects. My jaw tightened. Hopefully senior developer, I said. Maybe leading a team. Still living in the city. Traveling when I can. With Logan, if it makes sense. Hopefully, Ian repeated. Logan needs someone who knows, not maybe. Logan still said nothing. The jokes kept coming. Every answer I gave was flipped, twisted, examined for flaws. My job was useful but boring. My hobby of gaming was for teenagers. When I said I liked co-op games, Zach shook his head and said, "So you like watching men take the lead? Interesting." By the time my glass was half empty, my patience was running on fumes. The final straw came dressed like a casual comment. Scott raised his glass. "To Logan," he said. "Our last remaining romantic. May he finally find someone who lives up to Michelle's legacy." I set my glass down so carefully, you would have thought it was fragile crystal instead of thick bar glass. "I need some air," I said, pushing my chair back. "Oh no," Ian said, smirking. "Did we hit a nerve?" Zach stage whispered, "Blocked throat chakra." "Camille." Logan reached for my wrist. "They're just having fun." "At my expense," I said, my voice very calm, "for the last 3 hours." "They're protective," he said, rolling his eyes like I was being dramatic. "If you can't handle my friends, that's your problem." The whole table went quiet, 6 pairs of eyes on me, waiting for my reaction, like we'd reached the twist in their favorite show. I looked at Logan, really looked at him, the man I'd been planning vacations with in my head, imagining maybe a shared lease, a dog, a life. The man who'd watched me get dissected and decided the risk of upsetting his friends was greater than the risk of losing me. "You're right," I said finally. "It is my problem." I pulled out my wallet, left enough cash to cover my drinks and tip, and turned to go. "Camille," he said, incredulous. "Don't be dramatic." I didn't answer. I walked past the bar, past the hostess, out into the clear night air that hit my face like a reset button. My phone buzzed in my hand, notifications from Instagram. I glanced down, a story from Scott's account. A boomerang of the table, wine glasses clinking. Caption: "Council test night. Let's see if she survives." Tagged, @CamilleCodes and @Logan28. For a second, anger burned clean and white-hot in my chest. Then it settled into something much sharper, much colder. "You think this is a test?" I thought. "You have no idea." 2 hours later, Logan finally texted. "That was embarrassing. You made me look bad." "I made you look bad? You couldn't take a little teasing. They were testing you. And you let them. They're my friends. They have high standards. If you can't handle that, maybe you're not ready for something serious." I stared at the screen, feeling the last part of my patience go dark. Maybe I'm not ready for a relationship where I'm the punchline. So dramatic. Sleep it off. We'll talk tomorrow. But I already knew we wouldn't, because I wasn't planning to sleep. I was planning to solve my problem. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was replaying their jokes or wishing I'd come up with sharper comebacks, but because something in my brain had shifted from defense to design. I'm a developer. My job is finding bugs in systems and deciding whether to patch them or scrap the whole thing. Logan's friend group wasn't a bug. It was the entire system. Around 2 a.m, when the city had finally stopped sounding like plates clinking and started sounding like tires hissing on wet asphalt, I opened Instagram again. Scott had made one crucial mistake. He'd tagged me. That little blue ad under his story meant I was now 3 taps away from his profile, and from there, a whole web of information they'd never imagined I'd see as anything more than social decoration. His handle was exactly what I expected. @ScottActually. Bio: Marketing Director @Standards. Raising the bar for modern dating. Link to his startup's account. Recent grid, full of glossy photos of attractive women in blazers and silk dresses, fake empowerment quotes pasted over their faces. I clicked through to the company page. @StandardsApp. Tagline: For high-value women who refuse to settle. The irony actually made me laugh out loud. Somewhere between the inspirational reels and posed team photos was a call for beta testers. The comments underneath told a different story. "This app crashes every time I try to send a message. Lost all my matches after I updated, 0 stars. Keeps matching me with my ex. Is this some kind of sick joke?" I started taking screenshots. 1, 2, 10. My camera roll filled up with their own marketing promises, followed by paragraphs of strangers dragging them for incompetence. Next was Ian. His handle was on Scott's followers list, first row, @IanStyled. His grid was what you'd expect. Flat lays of outfits, mirror selfies in expensive-looking coats, captions about elevated basics. I scrolled through until I hit a blog link. His latest article, 10 Signs You're Dating Down. The thumbnail? A stock photo of a woman in jeans and a t-shirt, sitting at a computer, looking ordinary. The opening line, if your partner thinks Target is a personality trait, you might be dating beneath your potential. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because it hurt, I was past that, but because the projection was almost artful. Screenshot. Then another, then the next paragraph, where he talked about IT guys and admin girls with stable jobs but no ambition, as if security and consistency were character defects. You live with roommates and pay rent late, I muttered to myself. But sure, talk to me about potential. It was like pulling a thread. Everything unraveled the same way. Nate's LinkedIn was easy to find. He'd bragged about his firm at the table. Bio. Family law specialist. Helping women get what they deserve. I'm not against that on paper. What made my stomach twist was the humble brag posts about coaching clients to play the long game, with just enough smugness to feel like weaponized empathy. Screenshot, screenshot, screenshot. But Zach was the jackpot. His yoga account was polished. Sunrise poses, smoothie bowls, inspirational captions. Protect your energy. Don't let toxic people dim your light. You deserve someone who chooses you every day. Except one of his old followers had tagged him in a comment on another account. Remember your old blog, @Zachalines? Wild times. Curiosity is a dangerous browser. I opened a new tab, went hunting. It took me 20 minutes and a half-remembered handle from a tagged archive post, but I found it. An old, deleted blog that still lived in the Wayback Machine, frozen in cached amber. Confessions of a Side Piece. The title font was ugly. The content was uglier. If he's taken, he's just pre-approved by another woman. Your friend's man is off limits, unless she disrespects you first. Karma isn't real if you don't get caught. In one post, he described sleeping with a woman's boyfriend from his own friend group. He changed names, but the timeline, the details, I had a feeling if I laid them next to the council's history, something would line up like coordinates. I didn't need to yet. Screenshot, screenshot, more. By the time the sky started to tint lighter, my camera roll looked less like petty stalking and more like evidence. Their words, their posts, their public faces. I wasn't planning to lie about any of it. Saturday morning, Logan showed up at my apartment. He didn't text first. He just buzzed until I let him up. I opened the door to find him standing in the hallway with his hands in his pockets and guilt arranged carefully on his features. "We need to talk about last night," he said. I stepped aside. "Do we?" He walked in like he owned the place. Like the last thing he'd said to me wasn't that my discomfort was my problem. "You embarrassed me," he started, walking out like that. I stared at him. "I embarrassed you?" "Yes," he said, incredulous. "You made a scene. You made it awkward for everyone." I sat there for 3 hours while your friends mocked my job, my hobbies, my clothes, my future plans, and compared me to your ex-girlfriend, who, by the way, they still talk about like she's the benchmark for your love life. And I quietly left. That's your definition of making a scene? "They were teasing," he insisted. "They test everyone. It's their way of looking out for me. They test your girlfriends by humiliating them in front of you while you sit there and watch." His jaw tightened. "You're being too sensitive." There it was. The sentence women get handed whenever they refuse to quietly absorb disrespect. "My friends have high standards," he went on. "They just want what's best for me. They don't want to see me with someone who can't handle strong personalities." "I have no problem with strong personalities," I said. "I have a problem with bullies." His eyes flashed. "They're not bullies. They're successful, confident men." "There's a word for successful, confident men who enjoy tearing down the woman sitting across from them," I said. "It's still bullies." He exhaled hard. "God, Camille, you always do this. You overanalyze everything. Not everything is a moral crisis. Sometimes you just need to toughen up." I let the words sink in. Evaluate them. Label them. "Okay," I said finally. "So your position is, your friends get to say whatever they want, however cruel, and my job is to toughen up." They weren't being cruel. "You laughed when they called me vanilla," I said. "You laughed when they said I was dating up. You smiled when they toasted your ex in front of me." His eyes darted away. "Michelle's just part of our history. They miss her too. She did big romantic gestures. She cared." My throat felt suddenly dry. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said slowly, "they want to make sure I don't end up with someone who settles, who's content with hopefully and maybe instead of big plans." I thought of the late nights debugging code, the promotions I'd earned without a cheer squad, the retirement account I funded by saying no to vacations I couldn't afford. So, having a stable career and realistic goals is settling, I said. Good to know, he huffed. Don't twist my words. I'm just repeating them back, I said. It's a habit now. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Look, the point is, they're my friends. They see things I don't. If you can't handle their honesty, maybe you're not ready for a serious relationship. Maybe I'm not ready for a relationship where I have to pass a hazing ritual to be treated with respect. We stared at each other, a quiet hallway standoff inside my own living room. Are you really going to throw away what we have over one night? He asked finally. What we have. I thought of every date where he'd been half on his phone, sending memes to the council, every time he'd brushed off my discomfort with a joke, every story that ended with, the guys think, instead of I think. I'm not throwing it away, I said quietly. You handed it to them. He scoffed. Wow, dramatic. We'll talk when you've calmed down. I smiled then, small and tired. I am calm, Logan. He left in a huff, pulling the door a little too hard. It made a hollow noise, like something shutting that might not open the same way again. 2 hours later, he posted a story. A selfie with the caption, "When she can't handle your circle." The council all liked it. That was the moment something solidified in me. Not rage, not heartbreak, just certainty. You're right, I thought. I can't handle your circle. So I stopped trying. Sunday, I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started laying out everything I'd collected like a case file. Scott's app fiasco. Ian's dating down manifesto. Nate's smug posts. Zach's side piece confessions. Not for revenge, for clarity. By Monday, Logan texted again. Are you seriously still mad? It's been 3 days. I'm not mad, I'm busy. Busy with what? Solving my problem. What does that mean? You'll see. He sent 3 dots, then nothing. Perfect. Wednesday morning, everything was ready. I created a new Instagram account with a throwaway email. Profile picture, a black square. Username, @problemsolver. Cam. No posts, no followers. I followed all 5 of them. Scott, Ian, Zach, Nate, Alex, and Logan. They accepted within minutes. Of course they did. High-value men love an audience. I opened stories. My thumb hovered over the create button. Heart steady, brain startlingly quiet. If I don't like his friends, that's my problem, I murmured to myself. Time to solve it. The first story went up at 10:07 a.m. on a Wednesday. A simple black background. White text. Since I'm apparently the problem, here's my solution. I tagged all 6 of them. @Scott. Actually, @Ian Styled, @Zachalines, @Nate Lawwins, @Alex M, and of course, @Logan28. Within minutes, I saw their icons pop up in the viewer list, one after another like dominoes tipping. Perfect. The next slide was a screenshot. Scott's Venmo payment to Michelle Harper, Logan's ex, for group gift, date stamped, 3 months after Logan and I started dating. Caption. Interesting. Buying your ex birthday presents while you're with someone new. But sure, I'm the sensitive one. The viewers jumped from 6 to 40 in seconds. Next slide. A screenshot of the reviews for Scott's Standards dating app. 1.2 stars. Users complaining about matches disappearing, crashes, and accidentally reconnecting me with my ex. Raising the bar for modern dating by matching people with their past. Revolutionary. Then came Ian. I posted a screen grab of his blog article, 10 Signs You're Dating Down, highlighting the line about Target being a personality trait. At least my Target jeans aren't pretending to be designer imports from AliExpress. # fake it till you expose it. Within 5 minutes, Ian's account went private. Next, Zach's masterpiece, snippets from Confessions of a Side Piece. If he's taken, he's just pre-approved. Karma isn't real if you don't get caught. Caption. Ah, yes, our local yoga guru finding inner peace, one stolen boyfriend at a time. Namaste. And finally, the calm slide that tied it all together. Logan once said if I didn't like his friends, that was my problem. Problem solved. The phone started vibrating almost immediately. Texts, calls, DMs, notifications. I ignored them all and opened Telegram. Because here was the delicious part. Scott had once bragged at dinner about how they'd moved the council chat to encrypted apps. He'd even flashed his screen to show the group name. Council chat. Public groups on Telegram are searchable if you forget to switch the setting. So I searched. There it was, open. Still public. I joined, and just like that, I was in their sacred circle. The messages were already flying. Scott, WTF is happening? Ian, she's psycho. Take that story down now. Zach, bro, how did she find my old blog? Logan, stop panicking. I'll handle it. Nate, this is defamation. I can sue her. I waited until they slowed down, 5-10 seconds of digital silence, then typed. Hey, boys. Thought I'd solve my problem directly. Chaos. Scott, get out. Zach, you're insane. Ian, this is harassment. Harassment like calling a woman vanilla for sport? I wrote back. Another pause. I could practically hear them breathing. Then I dropped the real bomb. Quick question, Zach. Remember May 2019? Ian's ex, Clara? Ring any bells? Zach, don't you dare. Ian, what about Clara? Just wondering how ethical non-monogamy looked from her perspective. I loved your blog post, by the way. When your friend's ex becomes your soulmate. Enlightening. The typing bubbles blinked on and off like Morse code for panic. Then another message from me. Also, Scott, how's that $3 K you borrowed from Logan for the startup? Miami looked fun. Business trip or music festival? Logan, wait, what money? Scott, that's not your business. Nate, you told us that was investor cash. Scott, it was reimbursed. Ian, reimburse my ass. We all chipped in for your flights. The chat erupted. They were devouring each other, fast, wild, desperate. While they were busy combusting, I quietly exited the group, deleted the app. Silence again. 3 hours later, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Logan. I let it ring. Then came the pounding on my door. I opened it just enough to see him, red-faced, hair a mess, phone in hand. What the hell did you do? I leaned against the frame. Solve my problem. You destroyed my friends. They destroyed themselves. I just handed them a mirror. That blog was from years ago, he shouted. That money thing was between friends. You had no right. No right, I repeated slowly. Like they had no right to tear me apart for hours while you watched? He blinked, the words hitting something raw. That was different. They were joking. They were comparing me to Michelle and laughing at my job. His jaw clenched. You made us all look bad. I tilted my head. Scott's app made him look bad. Ian's blog made himself look bad. Zach's old confessions, Nate's fake virtue posts, they did the heavy lifting. I just organized the content. You ruined everything, he said quietly. I cleaned house, I corrected. You're welcome. He took a shaky breath. Do you have any idea what you've done? They're furious. They're calling lawyers. For posting screenshots of public information? I asked. Go ahead. He exhaled hard, ran both hands through his hair, then looked at me like he didn't recognize who he was talking to. Why? He whispered. Why couldn't you just let it go? I met his eyes. Because I asked for respect and you gave me ridicule. Because you said if I didn't like your friends, that was my problem. And I don't live with problems. I fix them. He stared at me for a long moment, lips parting like he might apologize, but pride won. You're insane, he said finally. Then you should thank me, I said. You're free now. You and your counsel can rebuild. I closed the door gently. Not a slam, not a dramatic flourish, just final. That night, I poured a glass of wine and watched their world implode in real time. Scott's app page filled with angry comments. Scam. Fraud. Stealing investors' money. Ian's sponsors began quietly untagging him from collaborations. Zach's yoga clients screenshot his old blog and left reviews about energy vampires masquerading as gurus. Nate's firm locked his profile and issued a statement about reputational review. Even Alex, sweet, anxious Alex, sent me a DM. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For that night. For not saying anything. They've been awful for years. I guess I needed someone else to prove it. You didn't owe me that apology, I wrote back. But thank you. They're done, he replied. All of them. You did what no one else could. I didn't reply to that one. There was nothing satisfying about being right when being right cost you someone you'd once loved. The council was dead. But they weren't finished trying to take me down with them. The next morning, my work phone rang. Camille, my manager said, voice tight. We received a complaint. My stomach went cold. From who? A group of men claiming you've been harassing them online. They attached screenshots from an Instagram account. Of course they did, I said softly. Look, I had to ask, she said. Is any of this true? I'll send you the full context, I said. 10 minutes later, she had everything. Screenshots of the council's public posts, their mocking messages, their harassment, the timeline from the night at the bar through the fallout. When she called back, she actually sounded relieved. "Thank you. We'll disregard the complaint. This is clearly personal. You're fine." But Scott wasn't done. By afternoon, he'd launched a Twitter thread. "A woman I dated briefly hacked and harassed me and my friends because we didn't approve of her. This is what happens when fragile egos meet rejection. Men, protect yourselves." It picked up traction fast. Retweets, believe women, think piece accounts quoting it like scripture. Until one reply changed everything. Alex Official. "I was there. She was humiliated for hours. They compared her to Logan's ex, mocked her job, her clothes, her hobbies. Everything she posted was public. That's not stalking, that's consequences." The thread stalled, then crashed. Within hours, other replies poured in. Former coworkers calling out Scott's stolen marketing copy. Exes of Ian sharing DMs of him belittling them. Clients of Nate describing coercion. It was like watching termites swarm out of a wall everyone thought was solid. By midnight, the house collapsed. Scott's investors pulled out. The app's website went dark. Ian lost every brand deal within 24 hours. Zach's studio was review bombed until he deleted the account. Nate's firm suspended him, pending internal review. Even Logan's old posts, filled with laughing emojis and comments like, "Still think they're protective? I didn't post anything else. I didn't need to. Sometimes the truth just needed air." 2 weeks later, Logan showed up one last time. He looked smaller somehow, like someone had turned down the saturation on his life. "You win," he said quietly. "It wasn't a contest." He hesitated. "You really hate me that much?" I shook my head. "I don't hate you. I just finally stopped volunteering for your lessons." He swallowed hard. "They're gone. All of them. The group chat, the app, everything." "Then maybe now you'll have space for something real," I said. He tried to smile. "You're cold, you know that?" "No," I said. "I'm warm. Just not to people who treat me like a punchline." He left without another word. When the door closed, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Part 4. Consequences and Quiet Redemption. My name is Camille Rivers, and by the time spring rolled around, the internet had stopped buzzing about the council. What was left were fragments, deleted posts, cached screenshots, and a half-dozen men who'd finally learned that public humiliation cuts both ways. Scott's startup had folded within a month. His rebrand video, filmed in his parents' backyard, got maybe 12 views before the comments filled with reminders of his old Venmo history. Ian moved back in with his sister after sponsors cut ties. Zach tried opening another yoga account under a different handle, but someone always found him. Nate's law firm dropped him entirely. He resurfaced briefly as a relationship coach, and the irony almost made me laugh. As for Logan, he had vanished from social media altogether. I thought that was the end of it, until one night my email pinged. Subject line, "No excuses, just context." From Logan. I hovered for a minute before opening it. "Camille, I don't expect a response. I just need to say this somewhere you might see it. I see now what everyone tried to tell me about them, about me. I let people humiliate you and called it loyalty. I mistook their approval for my identity. When you walked out, I thought you were overreacting. Now I know you were escaping a sinking ship before it went under. I lost more than friends. I lost the version of myself that believed cruelty was strength. I'm sorry." I read it twice. The words didn't sting. They didn't soothe. They just sat there, flat, honest, overdue. Then I archived the email and went back to my night. Because closure, I've learned, isn't a reply. It's the ability to move on without needing one. 2 months later, I ran into Alex at a coffee shop. He looked lighter, freed somehow. "I heard you're still at the same company," he said, smiling. "Good for you." "Stable employment," I said. "It's kind of my thing." He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "You know, they all hated me for speaking up, but it was worth it. I started therapy. Turns out when you spend 10 years laughing at the wrong jokes, it messes with your head." I believe that. "You dating anyone?" he asked, half embarrassed. "Yeah," I said softly. "Someone new." His name was Ryan. We met in the most ordinary way possible, standing in the same checkout line at a bookstore. I was buying a biography. He was holding a plant care guide and a copy of Dune. The first time we got coffee, he didn't talk about his ex. The second time, he asked if I'd eaten that day before diving into small talk about playlists and favorite seasons. His group of friends, 2 guys and a woman, were normal, funny, self-aware. They asked me about my job and actually listened to the answer. At one point, one of them made a teasing joke about me being corporate, and before I could even react, Ryan said, "Hey, be nice. I like her." Just 3 words. Simple, unscripted, and it landed harder than any grand apology Logan could have ever written. Some nights, when the apartment is quiet and the city hums outside my window, I think back to that wine bar, the clink of glasses, the way the laughter slid sideways into cruelty, the moment Logan looked at me and said, "If you don't like my friends, that's your problem." He was right about one thing. It was my problem, and I solved it. Not by revenge, though it might have looked like that from the outside. Not by ruining anyone's life. They did that themselves. I solved it by remembering who I was before I started apologizing for existing in the wrong room. Rochelle, one of my coworkers, calls it the quiet phase. The one that comes after the explosion, when you start planting things instead of burning them. She's not wrong. I've learned to cook again. I started going to a new yoga class. Not Zach's, obviously. The instructor doesn't talk about energy. She just reminds us to breathe. Sometimes I even wear the same Target jeans Ian mocked, because they fit and I like them. Ryan noticed once and said, "Those look good on you." I laughed. "They're practical." "Yeah," he said. "You make practical look incredible." That's all it took. One small moment of gentleness to erase an entire chorus of mockery. A few months ago, someone sent me a link. The council's old group photo resurfacing as a meme, captioned, "When karma doesn't need your help." I watched it go viral, watched the comments fill with jokes and disbelief. I didn't share it. I didn't comment. I just closed my phone and poured myself some tea. Because the best revenge isn't proving anyone wrong. It's becoming someone who doesn't need to. I'm 30 now. I rent a quiet apartment with big windows, pay my bills on time, water my plants too much, and code things that make sense. Sometimes I still check for bugs, but not in people anymore. When you grow up learning to fix everything, it's hard to accept that some things, some people, are meant to break. Logan once said strength was taking criticism with a smile. I know better now. Strength is walking away the first time you're told you should earn basic decency. So when people ask if I regret what I did, I tell them no, because all I really did was hold up a mirror. They didn't like what they saw. That's not my fault. These days, my life is small, deliberate, peaceful. The rent is paid. The coffee's strong. The laughter in my life doesn't sting anymore. And every so often, when the past tries to whisper in my ear, I remind myself, respect isn't something you beg for. It's something you enforce. Sometimes the most radical thing a woman can do is refuse to sit at a table that laughs at her.